Ready now to call on Mr. Carl Ragsdale, who is the chair of the Capital Campaign Committee for Trinity Center.
Thank you, Bishop, and good morning to everybody. Isn't this a pretty inspirational and beautiful way to start off the morning? While you're looking at that beautiful picture, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, haven't we seen you before? And the answer to that question is yes, you have. 2 years ago, many of you will remember that I presented to you the results of a survey that had been commissioned by and received by the Trinity Board of Managers. We had a firm from Atlanta who does this on a professional basis come to Trinity and analyze every element of Trinity and give us their projection of the useful life of every element and the cost of repair and maintenance and replacement for those items. Following some discussion of that on the floor of the convention asked the Executive Council to seek a means of conducting a feasibility study for a capital campaign. Now, I quickly learned that a feasibility study does not mean is it feasible to have a campaign, but what is a reasonable and feasible goal for a campaign, which is sort of something I need to know. So following the convention, the Executive Council interviewed several firms and employed a nationally known, actually an internationally known firm to work with us. They conducted a feasibility study, interviewed many people probably in this room, and as a result of that, we arrived at a goal of a minimum of $6 million for a capital campaign. As you know, $1 million of it to be given to Trinity immediately to take care of long deferred and critically needed maintenance items right now, and $5 million of it to go into an endowment fund, which would be administered by the foundation, the income from which would be used to take care of the long-term maintenance at Trinity, which this professional firm tells us we need a minimum of $200,000 a year to fund that. So the firm was employed, we went to work, we worked with that firm for about a year. They helped us form the campaign and train people to work in the campaign. And during that phase of the campaign, we have raised, as of today, right at $600,000. So we're off to a good start. We're getting ready to enter a new phase of the campaign, and so we've ended our relationship with that firm simply because we're getting ready to enter a new phase. Now, you may wonder about the timing of a capital campaign. Is the economy not so good? Of course it's not. Is unemployment high? Yes. Are a lot of people struggling? Yes. There are lots of competing demands on discretionary income. But do you think a year from now will be a better time? Do we really think the economy will be any better in a year? Or how about in 2 years, or 3 years, or 5 years? And if we wait too long, it may be too late. Because while we might wait, the physical plant at Trinity is deteriorating. It's in a very beautiful but very challenging environment. It's heavily used, as you know, and it's almost 30 years old. This is what part of Trinity looks like. This is another shot of another area of Trinity. There are lots of places at Trinity that look like this, and frankly, we've got to do something about it and do something about it quickly. Despite these environmental challenges, the staff at Trinity continues to do a marvelous job with their facility of providing Christian hospitality to Episcopalians from the Diocese of East Carolina and to people from all over the country, really. They do a marvelous job there and get nothing but kudos for that. After all, this is the mission of Trinity Center, is to provide Christian hospitality. And they do that in a big way. As you've probably heard me say before, Trinity serves 120,000 meals a year. So clearly it is heavily used. So that's sort of the bedrock of where we are. But what does Trinity mean to all of us? What does it mean to the Diocese of East Carolina? What does it mean to you individually?
After having worked here as long as I have, I believe that Trinity Center is the greatest mission opportunity that this diocese has in front of it. I believe that the various programs of Trinity Center reach more people who are not Episcopalians, some of whom are not even Christians, and introduce them to all the best things about being Episcopalians. I believe that Trinity Center represents the best of who we are.
For me, Trinity Center is a place where I go to remember who I can be and to hopefully teach my children what they can be, because they go with me to camp sometimes.
I had the blessing of going back to camp last summer and to be a counselor as I was in high school, but to come back in the role as being a leader, a program leader for the week, and I took my family. And my greatest joy was taking my 4-year-old son out sailing in the Bogey Sound, as I used to do when I was a counselor, and to see the joy on his face as he lit up to say, "This is a great place." And to be in that dining hall with all the noise and all the excitement, and to see how much fun he had, especially when we sang the blessing together, whether it was to the tune of the Addams Family or Superman or whatever flavor we had that night. And to say, this is going to be the place that will form my son, as it was the place that formed me.
Pretty inspirational stuff. And those stories can be told by hundreds of people, by thousands of people, in thousands of different ways. So the answer to what does Trinity mean to us? Well, it means a lot to us, individually and as a diocese. Trinity, as the bishop said yesterday, is in many ways the beating heart of our diocese, is the spiritual center of our diocese. And it is the place where lives are transformed. And some of you, probably many of you in this room, have seen their spiritual journey transformed by their experiences at Trinity. So what do we do about our challenge? That's a pretty big number coming up. Pretty big, scary, frightening number. But let's stop for just a minute. Let me tell you a little bit about how I start my day. Every day, I start out by having 2 cups of coffee. And Alicia has a cup of coffee. And best I can figure, they cost me about 50 cents a cup. So that's $1.50 a day. That's, $10 a week? And I'll have to confess, if we're traveling and I get sleepy, or at my age have to stop and go to the restroom, we'll go to Starbucks. And I don't think you can go in and out the door of Starbucks for less than $10. I had breakfast at the restaurant at the hotel at Hilton today, and as I left, I stopped and said, if I walked in here and said, I need 1 cup of coffee, what's the cost? $2.50 plus tax. Now, I'm not foolish enough to think we're going to give up coffee, but I ask you by a show of hands, how many of you start your day by having a cup of coffee or a soda with caffeine in it? Raise your hands and keep them up for a minute. And then how many of you read a newspaper? Raise your other hand. And how many of you occasionally, in a weak moment, go to Hardee's and get a made-from-scratch biscuit? Raise your other hand. And how many of you have seen The Iron Lady or The Descendants or Mission Impossible or any other movie in the last 10 days or month? Lots of us, lots of us. Well, here's the point. We've got in this diocese about 19,000 Episcopalians and a whole lot of people that are not Episcopalians that know about Trinity and love Trinity. Now, what could we do if we all came together? Well, if we had only 4,000 of those 19,000 to make a commitment to this campaign, and if they would pledge over the next 3 years $8 a week, if you do the math, $8 times 52 times 3 times 4,000, it's right at $5 million. So we're talking about, again, I'm not going to ask you to give up a cup of coffee, but we are talking about sacrificial giving to this campaign. And we're talking about everybody joining in together and making this happen to save Trinity. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that at the Trinity booth out here, we have pledge cards and an envelope, and you can sign your pledge card, stick it in an envelope, seal it. It'll go to the diocesan office. Nobody will ever know what your pledge is, but it's important that you do that. The leadership of this diocese is really behind this campaign. I think I'm correct in saying our clergy is 100% behind it. And by being behind it, I mean they have made a pledge. They have signed a pledge card and sent their money in or committed to, as has the Trinity Board of Managers. Every member of the Trinity Board of Managers has made their commitment. The staff at Trinity Center have all made a commitment. The members, individual members of the foundation have made their commitment. Not the foundation, but the individual members. The executive council members have made their commitment. St. James Parish in Wilmington has made a very nice commitment to us. They had a capital campaign. They designated 10% of their campaign funds to go to Trinity, and that's been a huge help to us. These are the people that so far have enabled us to collect $600,000. That and new donors that are coming in every day. We got a gift this week of $10,000. So now what do we need? Well, we need you, and we need your fellow parishioners. First of all, we want to hear your Trinity story. Now get out your calendars for a minute and a pencil and a piece of paper, and I'm going to give you some dates that you need to write down. Come on, get out your pencils, come on. On March the 29th, we're going to ask people from every parish, not everybody, but people from each parish, to come to Trinity for what we're calling a storytellers gathering. We're going to have a very small program, but we're going to ask these people to talk to each other about what Trinity means to them. And we hope to accomplish two things by that. First of all, we're going to have a videographer there, and we hope to use some of these stories as a basis for a DVD or a disc, which I'll tell you more about later. We also hope some of these people will get very energized and enthusiastic and will help us with the next phase of our campaign. Then on May the 6th, the bishop is going to ask every parish in the diocese to have a Trinity in the Pulpit Day, in which somebody will stand up in your pulpit and talk about Trinity and probably show this disc that I'm talking about. It may be your parish priest, it may be a visiting priest, it may be a lay person, but the goal is to have every pulpit in the diocese talk about Trinity that day. And then on May the 27th, we're going to reinstitute Trinity Day. You may remember when we used to have that every other year. We're going to do it again this year to try to build enthusiasm and energy for this campaign. Now let me digress just a minute. Too long, Matt, sorry. Digress just a minute and tell you a story about my grandson, who's now a freshman at Carolina. But when he was about 5 years old, he was in a nativity play. And his role was he was the innkeeper. And his line was, of course, there's no room in the inn. So Mary and Joseph get to Bethlehem and they knock on the door. And grandson looks out at the audience and freezes and can't remember his line. Probably can't remember his name, but can't remember his line. So there's a pause and Joseph knocks again a little harder. The grandson looks through the door, still can't remember the line, but he sees his parents sitting in the front row. And for those of you that are parents or are about to be, you probably know that about 5 years old is the last time your children think your parents are perfect. They can do no wrong. They're perfect role models, and kids want to emulate them in every way they can. So he looks down and sees his parents and thinks, well, I'll just do what my parents do when somebody knocks on the door. With that, Joseph really knocks hard this time. Grandson throws open the door and says, y'all come on in and fix yourself a drink. But what's the point of that? Well, the point of that is role modeling. You know, Christ was our ultimate role model, and he taught us, hopefully he taught us, to feed the hungry and to love our neighbors, to treat everybody with respect and dignity, to be witnesses to our faith, and to be good stewards. To be good stewards. The past generations have built Trinity and have been stewards of Trinity. And now it's time for us to save Trinity, to be good stewards for the next generations. Because this is a time of new beginnings, both for Trinity and this campaign, we have created sort of a new logo, which looks like this. As you know, SOS on a life ring, but SOS is an international distress signal. And it means save our souls. How appropriate is that to save our soul, our spiritual soul? It might also mean save our structures at Trinity. And as you can see from the pictures, they needed saving. It also might mean show our strength. So we need to think for a moment, is without Trinity, where would we have our vestry retreats? Where would we have our parish family retreats? Where would the kids go through the Sound to Sea program and learn to be stewards of our environment? Where would teenagers go for a camp and have a good time, but feel free to talk about their spiritual journey with other teenagers without fear of being ridiculed or laughed at? Trinity has served us for almost 3 decades, almost 3 generations. And it's our time to throw Trinity a life ring and save it for the next generation, who will be going among you now to give you one of these buttons. Thank you.